Hey everyone! Welcome back to Story Hive. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss an update. Let's jump into today's story. Parents always chose my brother over me, so I skipped telling them about my wedding. Now they're facing public shame and a divorce. I am 27 female and have a younger brother, Mike, who is 21 male. He is the definition of a man-child and a mama's boy, always complaining, always expecting others to bow to him. He has just been awful. Ever since he was born, my parents fussed over him for everything. He's not special needs or had a traumatic birth or anything of the sort. He was just born, and my parents completely discarded me. My mom, 50 female, especially went from a loving mother to one of those boy moms that people make fun of on the internet. My father, 50 male, still showed me love and support, but he's always been too much of a coward to stand up to my mother and let me win at least once. The only one who stood up for me was my grandpa, 76 male, who always called my parents out on their favoritism and never liked my brother. I remind him of his late wife, my grandma, and we have a very special bond. However, he lives on the other side of the country, so I could never see him often. Mike knows our mom prefers him and loves to shove it in my face. Because of this and his behavior, he's spoiled, a brat, and an awful human. I can't remember how many times I ended up in trouble for things I did better than him or for things he framed me for. His only talent is his football skills. He won a scholarship to a nice college out of state. My parents didn't spend a dime on my education because apparently my fund had been used to cover expenses after a fire. I later discovered that said money was given to Mike to buy a car and a house. At public university, I met Lucas. He was the first person I was really drawn to there. Of course, I met new people who are now my dearest friends, and thanks to them, and Lucas, who was my best friend for years before we got together, I managed. Now both Lucas and I are well known in our fields and have very good salaries. Now to the main issue. Lucas proposed to me a year ago. We are very private people, so we didn't post it on social media or anything. When I told my parents, they dismissed it with a "that's nice." I'm starting to think they didn't listen to me at all. We decided that we wanted a nice but simple ceremony and reception with our friends and relatives. Lucas convinced me to invite my parents and brother, but they never responded to the invite. Whenever I went to visit and began to talk about my wedding without mentioning it was a wedding, my mom would always speak over me and talk about Mike's accomplishments and wild adventures. At one point I got fed up and interrupted my mom to tell her that there was an event I was planning to organize whose date was unmovable. She told me they couldn't attend because Mike was playing the last game of the season that very same day and wanted them to be there. Of course, this favoritism didn't surprise me. They missed my ballet shows and both my high school and university graduations for things related to him. At this point, I wanted to be petty. I told both my parents that it wasn't a problem to miss this event and purposely admitted the fact that this event was my wedding. I didn't insist further. Flash forward to a few weeks ago, I got married. It was perfect. My family, Lucas's family, and our friends were all there, and we had a blast. My grandpa was happy to give me away, and it was just perfect. My relatives asked me multiple times why my parents weren't there with us. I was honest and simply said they had Mike's game to attend and couldn't come. They gave me a few looks, and my grandpa was visibly angry for a while, but otherwise nothing strange happened. After the reception, Lucas and I left for our honeymoon and were phone-free for the whole duration of the trip. But once we got back, we discovered that a storm was waiting for us at home. I turned my phone on and was unable to even unlock it before a storm of notifications popped up. Most of them were from my mother and brother. Mike called me all sorts of nasty names and insulted me because the post apparently went viral in my parents' community, and they've been publicly shamed for their mistreatment of me. It also turns out that my grandpa personally visited my parents to go on a tirade, shaming my father his son to the point of tears. This seemed to be my father's breaking point because he was so distraught from missing his only daughter's wedding and for his father's disapproval that he finally rebelled against my mom and is threatening divorce unless she makes it up to me. I think that's why my mom has been spamming my phone with messages at first, insulting and threatening, and then downright pitiful, full of begging and pity parties. Now I'm at home with my husband deciding how to approach the situation. Most of my relatives, even those I didn't invite to the wedding, reached out to apologize for what I went through and claimed they had no idea this was happening at home. I can't blame any of my relatives. They all live with my grandpa on the other side of the country or in another state. But my mom's sisters and friends are belittling me for not telling my mom about the wedding because now she's inconsolable at the thought of having missed it. Personally, I think she just claims that to save face, but I'm not sure. The latest messages from my father and mother seem extremely saddened and hurt from missing my wedding. Now my family is divided on three fronts: the majority who is sticking by my side, my maternal and shaming me for hurting my mom's feelings, and my maternal grandparents who are adamant that I forgive my mom in light of her atonement. My best friends are telling me not to listen to them. Update: thank you so much for the feedback and love, it's overwhelming. I'm going to address the popular questions here. I did inform my parents about my wedding. I sent traditional paper invites to all my guests and was notified that all invites had reached their addresses. I did not receive any answer from my parents and Mike. I reached out to all of them through messages to double check. Those who hadn't replied told me they couldn't come. I asked my parents and brother via text, but they didn't respond. I was left on read. Knowing them and given all the things I had to plan, I didn't bother insisting. I didn't repeat the date of my wedding because I had already been told it was Mike's game. Plus, every time I insisted on highlighting my celebrations to get an answer, I was always told it wasn't that important, and to not be pissy and a bother because some things were simply more important than me. At this point, I think it's fair for me to not insist anymore. It's not worth the effort. I didn't keep my wedding a secret. I avoided telling my parents that it was my wedding to see if they would be interested in the slightest, but surprise, surprise, they weren't. Despite this, I did openly talk about my wedding with my aunts and uncles. My mother was in the room with us a few times when I discussed venues or dress shops with my aunt. The Facebook post was made, but sometimes Mom was on the phone and other times she was just chatting with other people. She never paid attention when I talked about it during reunions. She smiled and said, "That's great, dear," and then would change the subject. Radio silence on Dad and Mike. I kept in contact with them because every time I tried to go no contact in the past years I was harassed. I tried after my high school, bachelor's, and master's graduations, to which they never bothered to show up for reasons involving my brother. Every time I was shamed for daring to turn my back on family by my parents, my brother, my maternal aunts, and my maternal grandparents. I think the turning point here is that all those times Lucas wasn't by my side. We started dating a little after my last attempt at going no contact, and now that I have him here, I feel more confident in my stance. Before that, I wasn't as confident. As I already stated, all my paternal side lives on the other side of the country, and wasn't aware of how they treated me. I did try to expose my parents once at 14. My aunts, uncles, and grandpa reprimanded them. They faked being sorry, and then, once home, I got the beating and gaslighting of my life for lying. After that, I kept in regular contact with my paternal side, but admitted my parents' abuse out of fear, which, to be honest, still haunts me to this day. Only Grandpa knew, but he was always threatened with being alienated from me if he tried anything. My parents and I are not from the same city. I live in a city an hour's drive from my parents' city. If I ever want to visit them, I need to make sure I have time to do so, as I live with Lucas and he works. Thank you again for your support and advice. It is greatly appreciated. Thanks for tuning in to today's Reddit story. If you enjoyed it, please give this video a thumbs up and share it with your friends. And if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss out on more amazing stories. See you next time.